All right, you guys. We're back.
We're back.
I got Brett here with me and a special guest. Laurie Tamura is with us. They can totally hear you, Laurie. Go for it.
You can't whisper in these things.
A few minutes ago, I just went out there and I was like, hey, Brett, we're going to do the podcast. You want to come in? And I was like, Laurie, what are you doing? And Laurie's like, going home. And I'm like, no, you're not. Come with me.
Here I am.
Yeah, and so we brought her in. And we're going to be covering today, you guys. Me and Brett, about a month ago, went to the CrossFit Masters course. And we picked up a whole bunch of knowledge that really actually took me over the month to kind of like allow to seep in. And I had to go back and reread a bunch of stuff and rewrite notes and kind of allow it to actually like get into me cognitively so I can actually kind of like put things down on paper and come back with it. So me and Brett have this whiteboard in front of us right now that Laurie's looking at, trying to like go, what the hell is happening over here?
It's all me.
Exactly. And Laurie's basically, we thought it'd be cool to have her on here as somebody who's never heard this stuff before. And maybe if she has any insight coming from a 55 plus masters, right? Hopefully she'll have a little bit of not just two coaches talking, but, you know, coming from an athlete standpoint too. So, all right, guys. Brett, where should we tackle this thing? Where do you want to start?
I think we were talking before about like the mindset, like the initial mindset of the masters athlete, you know, talking about what's our mindset on it. And we talked about how different masters have different mindsets on this thing too. So it was pretty cool how some of the younger, I guess you can say younger male athletes, or not male, but just any younger masters athlete has that mental attitude of, I can compete with these younger adults.
Yeah, for sure.
I can still do this.
Yeah.
I'm not that old.
Yeah, so when we were at the course, they broke up masters into basically two different categories. We had our early masters and we had our late masters. And early masters was considered anybody from 40 years old to 54. And then late masters was 55 plus. And there's some very specific reasons physiologically why they made that separation. Mm-hmm. We know now that the CrossFit Games, for example, has 30 to 35 or 35 to 39 year old, a 40 to a 45, right, category. But when we look at it from a physiological and a psychological standpoint, we need to start looking at the masters when it comes to about 40. So about 40 and above, right, is where we start to see these physiological or mainly psychological, which is one of the big things we got, you know, kind of pounded into us at this masters course. That's where we start to see these changes. So definitely some things we need to talk about with that. And mindset was one of them for sure. So let's define the masters athletes though first before we go into the mindset stuff. Like, what is some of the stuff that a 40 to a 54-year-old person needs to consider? Basically just thinking about overcoming any injuries that they currently have. Mm-hmm.
And preventing, if they do have an injury, just preventing any further injury.
Yeah. So injury is definitely something that we need to take into account with our masters athletes. Like, I know we have a few people in the gym that have had injuries or coming back from injuries, right? So how do we get them to come back from that? But specifically, like in the 40 to 54-year-old category, we saw that we need to be mainly holding these people back a little bit, right? They have a tendency to want to push themselves just a little bit too hard. They still feel like, hey, I'm still an athlete. I'm still young enough. I could still do these movements that maybe they shouldn't be. They have a tendency to cherry pick, right? Right. Like they're going to see something and they're like, oh, I'm not going to be very good at that, so I'm not showing up today, right? Because they don't want to feel like they still can't do it. And then they easily get frustrated. Sure. Like they're still at that point where they should feel like they could still do these things. They should still be able to do muscle ups or still be able to hang with these guys, but they can't. Things are starting to go the other direction. So those are some of the main considerations for the 40 to 54-year-old category. And then at that 55 plus, this is where we really see. So like 40 to 54, they were saying, I mean, you guys should be striving to be doing the workouts as prescribed. That should be your goal from 40 to 54.
I know for me, speaking on in that, I noticed the change because I had the same mentality. Why couldn't I compete with the 18 and 25-year-olds? Mm-hmm. I could lift up that weight. I could do those same things. I could do pull-ups. I could do burpees. I could do whatever it is they can throw at me. I can do it. Yeah. I can think that, but that thought is a lot different than when this body doesn't want to do it. And that comes to, the whole, at one point, I can.
Yeah.
and I will, but at what cost? And that's the cost that happens then. And when you get into my category, you have to completely change that mindset. You can't be saying, I can compete with these people, because there's something about that 55. I know when I hit 54, it was like the whole year going into 55, my body felt different. And it was, I could definitely, and I didn't want that. I was like, no.
Yeah. Did you feel that at any other point before 55? Do you remember that at like your 40s, or do you remember that like 45, or it was specifically 55 for you? Mm-hmm. Wow. Awesome. That's really interesting to hear. I know I hear people like say that about every age you can imagine. Like I hear people go, oh man, remember when I hit 40, it was like downhill from there.
But that's all mental. That's where that comes in, your mindset.
Oh,
you have to, your mind has to be stronger than that.
Oh, okay.
In order to overcome that. Because you could, man, I'm 40, that sucks.
Yeah.
Or I'm 50, that sucks. But when I turn 50, it's like, yeah. This is cool, I'm 50.
So I think one of the big things that we learned at the course, that there was a study done by Dr. P.R. Langer in 2015. And you guys can look this study up. It's a study on considerations in treating physically active older adults and aging athletes, and specifically on pages 253 to 260. This is a peer-reviewed study that was done over a pretty decent amount of time on the distinction, why are older athletes getting injured more than younger athletes. And it was found that it had nothing to do with intensity, that it was volume that was causing these older athletes to get injured. And it also found out that there was actually no decline physiologically in recovery until about 70 years old.
Wow. That's encouraging.
What's causing people's recovery to decline is lifestyle factors. And so my theory is that like you get certain people who say like, oh man, when I hit 40, it just downhill from there. And you're like saying, oh, when I hit 55, I really felt it there. Is that there's probably something major that happened in their life during that couple of years, lifestyle wise, that really affected their recovery protocols that they were doing. Like how many times were they training, their work demands, their sleep habits, their stress, their nutrition, their social commitments. All of a sudden they're drinking a little bit more alcohol. Like all of those lifestyle factors are what they're finding is contributing to a lack of recovery in older adults between 40 and 70. It is not the actual workouts that they're doing.
Interesting.
Yeah, I now that I think about this stuff and think back, it's like when we're talking about what age was it, and I would say it's like around 44, 45, things kind of changed a little bit. I'm also wondering, I'm looking, look at that list of all the lifestyle changes, like, okay, yeah, that could have taken a factor into this, rather than just like, oh, I turned 44 to 45 and instantly from there
went out the window.
It's kind of like Amber and I was talking about, like that jug of milk. It's like, okay, it has a sell-by date where you can't drink it. It's like, do you mean to tell me by at 12:55 or 11:59 that milk instantly goes bad? It's like with our bodies, it's like, oh, you just turned 45. Well, let's just dial that back a little bit on you, and you can't do anything anymore.
Was there something specific that happened between 40 and 45 for you, Brett, like lifestyle-wise?
Probably a little more, probably stress a little bit. The sleep aspect probably is one other factor on that as well.
Yeah. So those are two things like around that time that kind of changed for you. Was there something that happened in your life that made that happen, or
just just more work stress related?
So your work went up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They see that like all of a sudden that people around. I mean, if you really think about it, like you go through your 20s and like, hey, life is great. You know what I mean? I got no extra stress. And if it is, it's like the stress that now as you get older, you realize that you had at 20 really wasn't stress, right? And then as you go into your 30s, like you get a little bit more responsibility and you have a little bit less time. And then maybe you have a baby and now you're sleeping a little bit less. And then you're eating
cold food.
You're eating cold food now, whatever. You're not sleeping as much. You open up your own business. This is me, by the way. Yeah. You open up your own business. Now you're not sleeping as much. You're still trying to be. And it's like, yeah, if you sit down and think about it, I'm like, I'm sure if I didn't have a kid, I had no mortgage,
right.
I didn't have my own business, I was able to work just a normal 8-to-5 job and come home and have no extra added stresses. I was able to sleep 10 hours a night. Like I'd be recovering like a champ. I'd feel great right now, but my hip kind of hurts, like I'm a little tired all the time. I always feel like I have this weird nose thing going on, like I'm kind of clogged up, and I'm like, yeah, it's not that I physiologically can't recover. It's like I just have more on my plate now. That's not allowing me to do the steps of things I need to do to recover. So I think that was like one of the really big eye-opening things for that 40 to 54-year-old category. Because those, I feel like, yeah, they said like, hey, you got to be careful with these guys and make sure you're holding them back or make sure they're not cherry picking or that they're not getting easily frustrated. But I almost feel like I kind of have the opposite problem with people from 40 to 54. What I see with athletes from 40 to 54 is they start to use that as an excuse. Why they're not pushing intensity, why they're not working out as much as they used to, is because, yeah, I'm just getting older. I don't really want to hurt myself. And so I'm just going to kind of, take it easy.
Try to get that blood flowing, moving a little bit, but not really push it too hard.
Yeah, they're like, because what are they thinking? They're like, well, if I push the intensity, I'm going to injure myself. I don't want to injure myself, That study by Dr. Langer proved that it's not intensity that is causing people to injure themselves. It's what I just saw it this morning after the 8:30 class, right? I watched this group of people and they're working out and they're moving through the workout. There's not real full max, and I don't see them on the floor after the workout going, oh my God, what just happened to me, right? They finish working out, they walk over, they high five somebody, and then what do they do immediately after the workout's over? They went into our room, they grabbed a dumbbell, they brought it out, they started doing some extra work with one of their buddies, and they're kind of moving at moderate intensity again, doing some extra work. That was over. Then what did they do? They went and grabbed a rower, and they brought it over, and they started doing some row intervals at like a moderate intensity. And I was like, oh, there it is. There it is. Moderate intensity and a lot of volume,
yep.
Right? Let's just pack on the volume on this body. And all of a sudden things start hurting and never feel better. Or they don't know why their injury isn't recovering as quick as it could. When you do a workout, and tell me if this is true with you, Laurie, like think of a workout that you've done where you finished it and you were laying on the floor like, where am I right now? What is happening to me?
You mean like today?
Is that how you felt today after when the workout was over?
It was the last, I guess, couple of weeks because I've been able to do more, put more and sweat more and do more.
Yeah.
I've felt like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die.
Awesome. And let me ask you this. When you were done with that workout, did you want to do more today?
No. I'm like trying to even go over there. Maybe I should do a little bit of mobility.
And that was like one of the really cool things that I like the big light bulb moment for me was like, if they're truly maximizing their time during that hour and pushing the intensity as hard as they possibly can, they don't want to do extra stuff after.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to. You're like, no, I'm done. That was plenty for me. I'm freaking smoked, right? And then now they're not setting themselves up for injury because they're not going to grab an extra dumbbell and doing more stuff and more stuff and more stuff. They're like, I'm going to go get on the Normatec for a second.
Yes.
Drink a protein shake.
Exactly.
And just, I'm done, right? And then that also trickles into all the other things that we see. So, like, you have somebody who does the workout at moderate intensity. They finish. Cool, I didn't injure myself. Life is good. Hey, I'm going to go do a little bit of extra stuff. Okay, cool. I didn't injure myself. Life is good. Hey, I'm going to do a little bit of stretching. Okay, cool. And then by that time they leave here, it's been like 2.5, 3 hours. When they could have come in, done the workout, hit it really hard, left here, and then had 2 hours to go home and prep for their food, get to bed a little bit earlier,
take a hot bath,
exactly.
Grab some salts, like a whole bag. Right,
exactly, and work on their recovery, and that's like where we'll see the gains. And so it's like maximizing your time and your intensity, minimizing the volume, maximizing the recovery. Repeat, rinse, and repeat. Yeah.
By the way, guys, if you hear some weird noises, it's probably lugs snoring like crazy down here. Just to let you know, if you hear something in the background, it's not.
And she's young. What's her excuse?
Hey, she's getting her recovery.
Yeah, she definitely is getting a recovery in there.
Yeah. So, with that being said, though, let's define intensity, because I think that's something that gets it's a very subjective term. And we talk about that level 1 courses. Like, if you go up to a bodybuilder and you say, "Hey, what's an intense workout for you?" They're like, "Oh man, I lifted so much weight and I got a massive pump and it was awesome." And then you go up to a triathlete and you're like, "Hey, what's an intense workout for you?" And they're like, "Oh man, my heart rate was in the maximum zone for 30 minutes. It was intense. It was crazy, right?" And CrossFit completely took both of those things away, where they go like, it's not about how much weight you're lifting, it's not about how high your heart rate is, it's about work capacity across broad time and modal domains. How much work can you do in a short amount of time? So a lot of people think when they hear the word intensity, and especially in CrossFit, they're like, well, I don't want to push the weights too heavy. I'm going to injure myself. And that to them is thinking intensity, because I'm telling you right now on this podcast, I'm telling you to push intensity. And to some people that may come across saying you need to add more weight. That's exactly the opposite of what I'm saying. Because intensity is how fast can you move something, how long can you move it for, and how quickly can you get this thing done. And if the weight is too heavy and you sit there and stare at the barbell for forever because you can't lift it because it's too heavy, right? You're minimizing your intensity.
Yeah.
You're actually better off bringing the weight down and moving faster than you are bringing the weight up and moving slower. It's the opposite of what intensity is. So it's, I was talking with somebody this morning about it, and I was like, okay, let's look at today's workout. So George Washington is our workout today. And you've got wall balls, pull-ups, snatches, ring dips, and double unders. If we look at that workout, where can you maximize the intensity, Laurie? What do you think? Like, what movements do you think for you, you're like, oh man, I could really push right there?
Double unders.
Okay, cool. Anything else?
That makes my heart go up.
There you go.
Snatches, because you're going to have to figure out your weight and drop it down. I mean, I had to drop mine down to 35 pounds just so I could go.
Oh, okay.
Could continue.
Okay, and you gave yourself like a goal on that, or okay, awesome.
I wanted to just break it in half.
Okay.
And
what'd you do for the pull-ups?
I did pull-ups half of the time, and then I did the ring row, or not ring rows, but the bar rows, or
rows on the
rows.
bar. Okay, yeah, cool. And then what about the wall balls?
I did the wall balls.
Okay, cool. What did the wall balls do to your heart rate?
That was brutal.
Okay.
Yeah, that was brutal.
So for you, like during that workout, your heart rate was elevated during the wall balls
and the double unders, especially.
And the double unders. Okay. And then if we look at like the pull up for you, that was kind of like more of like strength building and the pulling motion. And then even the snatch, you brought that way down. But would you say that's more skill focused for you? Like making sure you're doing it right, making sure that you're getting the hips to fully extend and that kind of stuff, right?
Because that's where the fear for me comes in.
Exactly, right? Because Laurie, tell us about what you got going on.
I got just a major back injury, and like a year and a half ago. So my L4, L5 disc burst and leaked fluid, and then back spasms, hospital.
You had to have an ambulance come pick you up and take you to the hospital, right?
Yeah, I was on the floor for like 5 hours.
Yeah.
And the worst part of it is that the doctor in the emergency room let me lay there for 4 hours with these back spasms, not doing anything but giving me hard narcotics, which will do absolutely nothing for muscle.
Yep.
And fortunately, the guy in the ambulance, the EMT guy, he was a power lifter.
Yeah.
And he's the one who told me, you need a muscle relaxer. That's all you need. Tell him you need that. And it was like I had to advocate for myself while I'm screaming of pain. And the doctor just kept on, no. And the nurse that came in, she was a bodybuilder. I was very fortunate because I had the same people really helping me to push for that. Mm-hmm. And finally, he decided he was going to take an x-ray and then just admit me because he couldn't figure out what was wrong. This is the emergency room doctor.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced because I laid there for so long that's why my back is so like it's just stuck in that position. The muscle just kept on every like couple minutes. It would just tighten up. And I mean, for you ladies out there that have had children, I will go through no drugs, child labor any day of the week compared to this pain.
Wow. Oh, geez.
This was horrible.
Wow.
This was the ambulance got there, my heart rate was over 200, over 180.
Oh my God.
And so they were very worried. He was really worried that this was going to send me into something else.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you've tried a bunch of stuff to get your back better, right? And we went down all sorts of different paths. And before we get down that rabbit hole and like where we're at now, going back to like the workout, for example, like hip extension and flexion is something that we've been really taking it slow with you and slowly building you back. And so that snatch movement is not an opportunity for you to push intensity.
No.
It's an opportunity for you to just work on the skill of the movement and whatever. But that's exactly what we mean when we say, like, hey, push the intensity in these workouts. It's that, like, you have an opportunity 2 times during that workout to really push yourself, and then a couple times to really kind of like, okay, I'm going to focus on the skill of this movement. I'm going to sit back a little bit. I'm going to make sure I move well. Okay, so now it's time to grab the rope. I'm going to go for a biggest set unbroken as I possibly can, right? Okay, I'm on the wall balls. I'm trying to do this unbroken. And you're kind of like going back and forth between this gas and this brake pedal during this workout. And that's what I mean when I say that we need to be pushing the intensity. It doesn't mean that you go at these workouts with reckless abandon.
Right.
It means that you need to be smart, but you need to understand that like you doing an unbroken set of wall balls is not what's going to injure you. It's going to be the extra work you do after, the extra work you do after, the extra work you do after, the lack of sleep, the lack of recovery, the shitty nutrition, the no mobility, the stress that's happening in your life that leads to injury eventually.
Well, and that all circles back to the mindset. Is you have to dial back. I mean, I'm a very competitive, always have been competitive, been in competitive sports all my life. And for me to dial back, because I could have easily gone out there and just did it all with that high intensity, just throw away technique, which, you start to do when you get tired, you start to have crappy technique.
Yeah.
And I did not want to do that. And so I've had to really, this whole year, have had to work on my mindset.
Yeah.
And that is, you need to do it correctly. You need to focus on technique. Where you can just go and blow, do it. But when it's where it's something that you have been faulty in your technique that has weakened you, now is the opportunity to build strength.
Yeah.
And so it's hard when you're competitive to slow it down. So the mindset has to be.
I really like the way you said that like when you injure yourself, like a snatch doesn't injure us.
No.
A deadlift doesn't injure us. It's like, it's the way we move that messes us up. We get, our ego gets in the way, or, we do something bad that injures us. And it's taken, when we teach a movement, like somebody comes in and does our on-ramp, it is preached to them from the beginning that it's mechanics, consistency, and then the last piece is intensity. You have to have good mechanics of the movement before you're even allowed to do more than 1 rep. Great. Now you need to have consistency of that movement before we're adding intensity. Let me see you do 5 reps of that. Perfect. Awesome. Okay. Now let me see you do 5 reps of that at a pretty decent speed. Oh, that was too fast. You lost your lumbar. Let's slow it down. Speed it back up. Slow it down. Speed it back. And that's a never ending process. Like that's something that for the rest of your life you should be working on. Right. And so, going back to like what you said, like you had to really dial it back, right? Because you pushed yourself into a situation that caused you to get injured, right? What was the path after that? You tried to do some things that weren't really working.
Yeah, because I felt like my core probably was a part of the thing that was a problem that needed to be worked on. And so a lot of core workout and inner core, deep core, things that, because I had a hysterectomy years ago, and I knew that my pelvic floor and, those jump ropes are not fun when you can't,
Which, by the way, is not a normal thing. A lot of women, especially, they go like, oh, I have pelvic floor issues, or I feel like I'm going to pee because I've had children, or even I haven't had children, but I'm blah, blah, blah. That's not normal.
Yeah.
That's not a normal thing,
No.
and there's ways to fix
Yes,
that. You know
there
what I
is.
mean? I don't know how. Don't come to me.
Or me.
Or Brett, or any coach here. We are not we cannot tell you how to fix that, but there are people out there that can fix that. That is not a normal thing. Yeah, okay, sorry, keep going.
No, not only can you fix it by surgery, but you could also fix it by really working that pelvic floor deep core, because that's basically what it is that the muscle layer that's laying right across that belt, that inner belt that we talk about.
Yeah.
That is that deep core, and learning how to contract and to really hold that. And I knew that I needed to do that because I knew that I wasn't, I felt that I wasn't bracing correctly. And so I went to people to try to work through that, and I thought it was doing good for a while. And then after about 3 months, I started noticing that I was going downhill really fast. Like within a matter of a week, things got ugly really bad. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong. Well, then it was like, then I go to the massage, and then I go do this, and then I try it. So I tried all kinds of different people and techniques and movement specialists, and, to try to help me to get my body back to where I can just move without pain. Because it literally was every single thing, every day. It was painful.
Yeah.
Just sleeping with pain, living with pain, walking with pain. And I didn't want to live like that. But I knew I didn't want to give up CrossFit either. And again, the mindset, it was like, this has got to change. I've got to do something.
So you got injured, felt like you needed to go do something specific to fix the specific problem, right? Like, okay, I have this specific problem. Totally, I'm going to go see a specialist in this thing who can fix this for me, right? Didn't work.
Nope.
Started to go downhill, actually get worse than it was before you started. And then what happened after that? What was the conversation between me and you at that point?
So it literally began, you just need to move through the movements. And just move through them, work through it, not work through the pain, but go through the movements. Dial all the way back to the very beginning, and let's just go through like if I were an 85, 90-year-old that was just learning how to squat.
Yeah.
You don't just drop and squat.
Yeah.
You go through the motions like baby
Hips
baby
back,
steps.
Knees out, sit in your heels.
Yeah.
Hold on to this bar while you're doing it. Yeah.
We
see it a lot in people when we go through the level ones where we make this correlation between, okay, great. You have your normal Globo Gym person who trains leg extension, hamstring curl, the innie outie yes no machine thing in the corner. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
They do calf raises. They do the band around the ankle and pull away with it. They train every part of the leg that you possibly could, right? And they train hard. But there are isolation exercises for each tiny piece of the leg. Then you put a barbell on their back and you say squat. And they can't. But you take somebody who you teach them how to squat. They say squat, weight in the heels, hips back, knees out, tracking with the toes, full range of motion, stand back up. Okay, great. Here, do that with a PVC pipe. Okay, great. Now add a barbell to that. Okay, great. You're still doing it. Now add weight. Boom, 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 boom. We teach them how to do that. We put them on the hamstring curl, the leg extension, the innie outie machine. They crush that guy on all of those machines, and they crush that guy on the back squat, because nothing ever replaces functional movement. Functional movement is what keeps people out of nursing homes. It's what keeps you from being decrepit. What made you go down that spiral, that hole where you felt like you were getting worse, is you took away functional movement. You went to this specialist who taught you, all that stuff you probably learned there was amazing. I'm sure there's some like great bracing techniques that you learned that really helped you out a ton. But the bottom line was that you took away the squat. You took away the press. You took away picking things up off the floor. I remember having a very specific conversation with you where I was like, you're like, I can't pick up that barbell. It's too low. It's too close to the ground. And I was like, Laurie, don't you have like 4 dogs at home?
and I do go to Costco and get the 40-pound groceries.
Yeah, and she goes, yeah. And I'm like, you have those big ass bags of dog food from Costco, right? She goes, yeah. And I'm like, do you pick those up off the floor and take them? And she goes, wait, yeah, I do. And I remember her look on her face when she saw that. She was like, I do that almost every day. I was like, and you don't think about it. You just do it. It's a functional movement. What's holding you back is your mindset. That now you see this thing as a barbell that injured you, and you want to stay away from it. But you'll go pick up your 80-pound bag of dog food every day, no problem, and not get injured. So it really does come back to the mindset on this whole thing. And I think that the quicker we could get people, number one, into functional movement, that's the number one thing. You have an injury happen, the quicker we can get you back to functional movement, the quicker you're going to recover. But it really comes down to those mindset and lifestyle factors.
Right.
If we can get you the good mindset of like, I can and I will get back into this and do this, get rid of the negative self-talk, right? So you have like those moments where you're like, oh, I can't do this anymore. Having certain things that you can use to pull yourself out of that, right? One of my coaches, Bob Fistro, he was my mental coach for a few years. Amazing guy. And he would tell me there was like this mantra I would repeat to myself where it was just recognize that there was something coming into your brain right now. Like, you know, oh my God, this is so hard. Boom. I recognize that I just said that to myself. This is so hard. I'm going to refocus. Okay, what is the task I have to accomplish in front of me? Oh, 3 more snatches. I'm going to take a deep breath, and then I'm going to do 3 more snatches. And it was just the being able to recognize really fast that there was a negative talk coming into my head and going, okay, that was a negative talk. Totally normal for me to have that. But now what do I need to do to keep going forward, right? And for you, Laurie, it's like the deadlift, for an example, right? You walk up to a bar and you're like, oh man, I don't know if I can do this. Immediately, that's negative talk that's coming to your head. What do? You go, okay, I recognize that I just said, I don't think I can do this. But what's the task I have to accomplish? Pick that thing up off of 4. Okay, let's brace, let's get against it, and let's give it a shot. And you immediately kind of pulled yourself out of that negative talk thinking. And like, there's always, like, everybody has little things that they can do to do that. But like, I always try to tell people, like, especially any athletes that I work with, I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you here? What is your goal doing CrossFit? Like, Brett, why do you do CrossFit?
To just keep myself healthy and strong and have energy throughout the day.
Okay, awesome. Just want to live a long life.
Yeah, live a long life and
be healthy.
Freaking have fun.
Cool. What about you, Laurie?
Well, it used to be I wanted to compete. I wanted to go to regionals. I wanted to go to games. I wanted to, I wanted it all, and give me it. I want to be there, even though the Masters don't get anything. They just get to be on the track.
And what is it now?
It's motion is lotion. That's my motto. It's just...
That's very funny. So what you originally wanted was a very extrinsic thing. Like, you wanted to be an athlete. And we see people usually with extrinsic... goals, basically. Like, I want to make regionals as the reason why they're doing something. They're usually the ones that get injured or the ones who fall out of love with this stuff. And when the people with the intrinsic values, the ones who go like, I want to be a role model for people, or I love pushing myself, or I want to live a long, healthy life, like those types of things. And they do this because they love doing it for that reason. And then if something like competing happens because of that, those are the ones who don't get injured. They enjoy this. They stay doing it for forever. And so that's really interesting. I wonder if that extrinsic goal actually led you into, I don't wonder, I'm probably positive that it led you into your injury.
Absolutely.
Because if you were just doing this to be, hey, I want to be healthy and push myself and be as good as I can possibly be, you would have ran into a moment where you went, hey, my back feels a little funny. Maybe I should take it easy or talk to somebody about this. And it probably wouldn't have gotten to the point it was. But instead, somebody who's going, well, no, I have a goal. They're going to be like, no, push through this. You're going to be fine.
Well, it's like, I've been injured before. It's no big deal. You get up and you pull your bootstraps up and you keep moving.
Yeah.
And so it all comes back. I'm convinced to the mindset. Even like we had a year ago, I think we had a conversation about, I was coaching a boot camp and all of my people the youngest one there was 65 and the oldest one was 82.
That's so awesome.
It was awesome. And it literally was just, they were so inspiring because it was like, that's what I want to be doing when I'm their age.
For sure.
And some of these guys, literally, like you said, you got to sit down, you got to squat on the toilet. You got to be able. So doctors say, "Oh, you can't squat." Well,
how the hell is he going to get off the toilet?
Yeah.
You need to stand up urinal.
He drove himself to the
right.
So
he has to get it out of his car.
Yeah.
And in this particular guy, you could tell he was like he's a good old boy, big old. He probably was a football player one day, and he was my 82-year-old, and the dude was tighter than tight, but he wouldn't give up, and he still kept working and. I was like, man, I said, you got this. You just keep working. And he goes, hey, as long as I'm moving, I'm living.
Hell yeah.
There you go.
And I'm like, that's right. That's exactly where I want to be.
That's awesome.
And the minute you stop moving, that's when things don't work.
Yeah, they threw out that whole rest, ice, compression, elevation thing. Like we used to say, like, something happens to you, okay, you need to rest it, put some ice on it, compress it, and elevate it. And it's like, that's completely been disproven now. Like, you should never ice anything anymore unless it's there's only 2 times you should ever ice anything. This is going completely out, like taking a right-hand turn out of what you just said. But you were like thinking, he was saying that, like, hey, as long as I'm moving, I'm living, and it really comes down to blood flow. Right, so like if you keep moving, you keep circulating oxygen through your body. The more oxygen you circulate through your body, the more inflammation comes down, the faster things heal, the better you feel, right? If you sit down and stop moving, blood stops flowing as fast as it should, right? That means that inflammation goes up, and that means that you're not doing good for yourself, right? It's like motion is lotion, like you were talking about. So
I feel so much better when I get up off whatever I'm doing.
Yeah.
and start moving.
Yeah, 100%.
When I start hurting.
Yeah. And everybody always says that too. Like you're like, like somebody's had a shoulder surgery. How you feeling? Oh, it's really stiff. But once I warm up, it starts to feel really good, right? Like, well, yeah, of course you're getting synovial fluid moving in the joints. You're starting to get your central nervous system to wake up. You're starting to get blood to flow. Like everything's working with. That's why we go through in our classes. We have a dynamic warm up first. Then we have a general. Then we have a specific, and then we do the workout. That's not just by luck. We do that on purpose. Like you have to create, number one, a routine to wake up the central nervous system before you do high intensity exercise. Every time you guys come downstairs and we go right arm forward, something triggers in your brain like, wait a second. Last time this chick did right arm forward,
we did more stuff.
Something crazy happened after. Hey, central nervous system, wake up. Let's get ready for this, right? And at the same time, you're getting synovial fluid to get into the joints, which lubes the joints. You're getting blood to flow. And you're awakening your central nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight. And if you awaken that, it's more ready for the intense exercise that you do. And so it helps you recover faster afterwards. Then we go through a general warm-up, which the whole purpose of that is to raise the core temperature. When you raise the core temperature, it helps the body move a lot quicker. It helps the central nervous system respond a lot faster, right? Then we go through a specific warm-up, which is taking you through the exact movements that we're doing that day in the workout. So the body understands muscle memory, how it should be moving. It starts to fire the synapses in the brain to the body. It starts to get things to connect. The skills and one of the other things we're looking at, the neurological challenges that we start to see, especially in our masters athletes, where balance and those types of things start to go away. This is bringing that back and bringing that stuff back in. And then we do the workout. And so, like, our classes are meant to get you ready. But the degree to which you take that dynamic warm-up, that general warm-up, and that specific warm-up seriously depends on how well you're going to do in the workout and how fast you're going to recover after. So if you're doing the dynamic warm-up and we're, like, right on forward and you're just moving your wrist in a circle and talking to the person next to you, you know what I mean? Like, you're not getting the most out of it. So,
well, I think fear is another thing, too. I mean, I know that, when you're injured and, there's a fear factor there, too.
Oh,
It's like, gosh, I know I had to really get over that is if I do this, could I get re-injured? I know we've had several conversations about that. I just I don't ever want to go through that again.
Yeah.
And it's like, is this going to make that happen again? Is this going to happen again? But it's like, as long as I do the things I need to do before, doing my McKenzie stretches, doing the things that help me to open up that, lumbar, helping me to create the space, helping me to get the motion in so I can get my lotion going.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Those are the things that, and the fear factor, it's like your brain will send out those neurotransmitters if you get that fear thing going that locks you up.
Yeah.
And then pretty soon, you're afraid, so now you're going to get hurt.
I think one of the biggest things that's really helped you, Laurie, as well, is that you have trust. Like, you trust me, right?
Yeah.
Like 100%. When you every day you text me, hey, what should I do today?
Sometimes you laugh.
And I say, I'll see you when you come in,
Yeah.
right? We'll talk when you come in. But it's that trust factor, and that's what we're really trying to get across to our masters athletes with this podcast, is the trust that we are putting you guys into our thoughts when we're making these workouts. That's been evident now that we have the 55 plus RX for the workouts, right? And we're seeing a scaling of about 70% of volume and loading that's happening with most of those things. And there's a fine line with that too. We need to push you guys as well. We need to make sure that we're not just pulling you back too far, but that there's something you should be striving for. So they say that, like, the average athlete in a gym, whether it be an open athlete from 18 to 39 or an early masters athlete, should be that they're RXing a workout maybe once a week. But they shouldn't be able to RX every single workout. There should be specifically some workouts that are programmed that are out of everybody's reach in the gym. But it's a way for me as a programmer to be like, can you do it? Can you make this happen? And if nobody can, what do? You go, hey, we're going to try again next time. And you have to always do that. But so there's this fine line that has to be done when you're programming, where you're like making sure that the volume and the intensity is correct for our certain age categories, specifically in the 55 plus area. But then that you're also pushing everybody else to push their limits and become better. And one of the hard things I know that I see with our 40 to 54-year-old categories going like, there's no way in hell I could do that RX.
Right.
Bet you if we took care of some some work demands, some poor sleep, some stress, some nutrition problems, some social commitments, and some alcohol consumption that we could probably get you closer to that RX.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So
how you feeling? How do you feel like after seeing that Masters RX weight or number, and then you're starting to able to hit? How are they still challenging for you?
Yeah, no. I mean, so the first week they came out, I was able to do 2 out of the 4 or 5.
Awesome.
So which was cool because I could. No way could I get the RX normal ever. Yeah. I just couldn't. Especially given the last year and a half. But knowing that, and there was times where I'm like, okay, well, I'm never going to be doing a 14-pound wall ball probably in any kind of competition at my age category, at least right now. So I'm okay doing a 10-pound ball or a 14-pound ball to get stronger.
Yeah.
I'm okay to dial it back and not do a 20-pound ball. But it is good because I feel like then if I know I can do the weight or the movements, it pushes me then now to see how fast I could do it.
Awesome.
If I know I can do those and I can hit them and I'm be safe, okay, how fast can I do it?
So it's helping you push the intensity.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very cool.
But the thing about trust, what you were talking about, is, and this is I know you don't like to. I'm going to publicly do this to you. Is it really is kudos to you, because you have to, in order to trust somebody, you really have to earn it, and you have to be a person that does the homework, studies, cares about the athlete, cares about the members, actually does show that they care, and do something about it, and help people, and be consistent in doing that. And that's what you have shown over the past 3 years that we've been here. And that's why Irving and I stay here.
Oh,
is because
I really appreciate that, Laurie, a lot.
That's awesome.
You care, and we trust you. And that's for all masters. I mean, anytime I see people, and I don't want to like pull people from different gyms, but it's like, this is why we go here. Yeah, we drive the extra because we're going to do something, and I want to be healthy, and our coach cares about us. His coaches care about us. Just it all comes downhill.
Wow.
It comes from the top, and if the top has it, then it'll flow down.
Well, we're trying.
So we clap.
Oh, thanks, Laurie. We appreciate that. Okay, let's wrap this thing up. We got a couple minutes left, but I want to do some definitely some. Okay, let's talk about like some real things here, like the psychological and the physiological effects that we see when we start to hit our 40s and our 50s and stuff like that. So, what are some of the physiological effects that we see, Brett?
A lot of changes with hormones. Testosterone levels kind of come down, estrogen levels. Menopause is also a thing that creeps in. The immune system, we get reduced function and inflammatory response with that. Our reduced stamina and cardiorespiratory endurance happens. Also, we get a little bit of reduced elasticity of the skin and our blood vessels. And lastly, the reduced capacity to recover from illness or injury. So yeah, all those things kind of slow down a little bit.
Yeah, and psychologically, they were talking about like our sensory and our perceptual changes, like hearing, eyesight, taste. Those things get a little bit changed as you get older. Neurobiological changes, which is like reduced neuroplasticity, so the ability to learn new skills become a little bit harder the older you get. So if you don't have double energy come in, it's a little bit harder for you to get those things. Plenty of other changes, but one of the big things that they really hit on us was that all of these things are age dependent on lifestyle factors.
Right. So just because you're getting older doesn't mean you're gonna get these at 44, 45, 46.
Yeah, so the time that it creeps into you depends on the lifestyle factors.
Exactly.
So if your lifestyle stuff is crap, right? You're not sleeping, you're eating like crap, you're, whatever else, you're stressed out the wazoo, all those sorts of things. It's going to creep in earlier compared to somebody who's not. It's going to creep in later and later and later, all the way up to what they're seeing is 70 plus years old. You can delay this stuff. So it's being delayed by those lifestyle factors.
Well, I think this one right here is the biggest one.
Stress. Yeah, for sure.
And that can cause so many diseases and problems in and of itself. And so that's going to carry over into anything on this.
Definitely.
But the cool thing about this whole thing is that even though it sounds like, oh yeah, we're going to get bad at, we're slowly going to get slower and older or whatever, but the cool thing is that just because we're getting older doesn't mean we can't get better.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? And I say that we stop right there and we come back and actually hit on this a little bit later. So,
okay.
Thank you, Laurie, for being us.
Thank you for
We
inviting me.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yay.
absolutely. And I think we need to do a round 2 on this, maybe with like another guest or something too.
Very
There's
cool.
definitely some other things you want to cover, and I've got 8 seconds left. So,
All right.
Thank you for being
All
with
right.
us, Laurie. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. And look for a number 2
All
on
right.
this podcast.
Thanks, Wes. Thanks,
All right.
Brett.